Nvidia RTX Spark, Pewdiepie's trillion-dollar project, Claude Outage, Microsoft adds native support for OpenClaw in Windows, Meta tent data centers, Anthropic AI slowdown, all this on XYZ Weekly Review. At Computex 2026, Nvidia featured its new AI chips for personal computers and PCs. As far as I understand, RTX Spark is supposed to target AI agents such as OpenClaw and local model development. The idea is to bring the compute power that you can get in a data center to your personal home laptop. But even though that Nvidia promises it to be as efficient as possible, the price tags are obviously going to be tremendous. A little while ago, if you remember, Nvidia released their own mini computer for AI local development. The price tag on that was $4,000. We can expect that the laptops are going to be priced around that, possibly lower, around the $2,000, $3,000 mark, but still, that is a big investment. Nvidia also promised RTX Spark Station, which is a 784 gigabyte desktop, which is supposed to run even the largest trillion parameter models locally. The price on that mammoth is rumored to be about $100,000. And this is a profitable deal for you if you're trying to build your own home lab GPU cluster. But people do spend more on tokens, so if you think about the costs, then it might be more profitable for you to put this $100,000 investment outright and then spend less on tokens afterwards. But I would say that with the advancement of models and how quickly these LLMs are progressing, sooner or later somebody's going to come up with a more efficient chip architecture, which is going to cost 10 times less, run 100 times faster, and the $100,000 it appears weren't worth it. Talking about local first and privacy-centered AI, Pewdiepie, the YouTuber, has just released Odysseus, a local first AI agent that is supposed to do a lot of things. Let me read to you some of the features. First, of course, we have the chat, which integrates multiple providers, and adding more is pretty easy. Then we have the actual agent. You can give it a task, and it does something. It is built on open code, has MCP, web, files, skills, and memory access. An interesting feature here is the cookbook, which basically scans your hardware and gives you model recommendations based on that scan. Then we have deep research, which is based off Tongia deep research. Compare, which compares model outputs side by side. Documents, where AI assists you to write text and not the opposite. Email, which is a quite nice feature where it just AI scans your inbox and gives you recommendations, reminders, etc., etc. Notes and tasks, which is pretty self-explanatory, and then there's a bunch of extra features, such as image editing. All in all, it looks like a pretty useful tool. Microsoft has introduced some new features to Windows, which it revealed at Microsoft Build 2026, and some of them include AI agents. I think that they're looking forward to RTX Spark in their laptops when they can run local first inference. A notable feature there is that they have added a one-click install of OpenClaw on Windows, and it also runs securely in a sandbox. Let me read to you what they said. OpenClaw runs natively on Windows. The Windows node and gateway run contained, so your system stays secure. You can easily install and use OpenClaw on Windows with its own companion app and set up your own claws or connect to existing ones available in open source. We are invested in continuing to make OpenClaw run securely on Windows. And the last sentence I read is very, very true. Microsoft is really invested into making OpenClaw experience on Windows frictionless, because many people are installing OpenClaw, and suddenly they see, well, Windows isn't the best environment for OpenClaw, and that Linux is a lot better, so why don't I just go and take my old laptop, install OpenClaw on that? Or they simply buy a Mac Mini and do it on there. And here Windows and Microsoft are trying to catch up to the agent race, And they could do it, because they already have a very large user base, and changing from operating systems is truly hard, and people would rather simply install OpenClaw on their current OS than downloading something else and doing it there. Meta is building data centers and tents. Of course, not a tent as a shanty, but really huge 125,000 square feet tent. This is an interesting technique and is purely done to minimize the time needed to create a data center. Right now is a race of who can build the most compute in the least amount of time possible. I do not know what Meta is thinking about the long term for these data centers. Will it build a building around the tents? Or are they simply going to take apart all the infrastructure and relocate it to a different place? I think that further updates on this topic will be fascinating to read. Alright, and now we have 3 news stories about Anthropic. Number 1, Claude has experienced an outage. And of course, these things happen. It's not like it's an Anthropic thing, but the interesting thing, in one of the threads on Reddit, a user posted about this. Here is a summary of all the comments. Looks like we all had the same, moment today. The thread's verdict is, we loved Claude to death. And there has been a lot of articles, Reddit posts, and others, which talked about how Claude was helping them in their workflow and how reliant they became on the technology. And I think that this is a bit of a wake-up call to everyone, because we are relying on this technology more and more. What does happen when something like this happens? Are we all just rendered useless? Can we continue to code the way we did? Do we still remember how we did things before AI? The issue then was resolved and Claude is now up again. Anthropic released an article on their blog post in their natural style, where they talk about how AI is getting better, how our AI is getting better, and then they talk about how dangerous this technology is and how we're containing it, or how it should be contained. Here Anthropic talked about how AI is getting so good that it's going to improve itself, basically. And at the end, it had a call to action. Let me read it to you. So under the section, what should we do? We believe it would be good for the world to have the option to slow or temporarily pause frontier AI development to enable societal structures and alignment research to keep up with the advance of the technology. The Anthropic Institute will conduct research in collaboration with many others to take actions to help build the systems that a credible slowdown or pause would require. These systems would enable frontier AI developers to verify that others globally have actively stopped or slowed, and that a bad actor could not use the auspices of coordinated slowdown to jump ahead in secret. If such systems existed, we expect that we would slow down or temporarily pause if other developers at or near the frontier also did so in a verifiable manner. I think that this is a first from such a big company as Anthropic that is saying such a thing. Of course, there has been others, such as Dr. Roman Yampolsky, which talked about the danger of AI and that it should be stopped. But nobody as influential has ever spoken out in that way. It is kind of funny that Anthropic says this, and then there's a leak of their new model, Oceanus, which is supposed to be even stronger than Mythos, and that they already released to some red teams. So it looks like they're only going to slow down if everyone else slows down. They're not going to be the first. And I think that's a problem in the mindset of everyone in the AI right now, where people have this presumption, and I say correct, true presumption, that if they don't do something, then somebody else will. And that is true. Sooner or later, somebody else is going to invent that thing. How many AI CEOs or people who are invested into AI have said that, well, if we don't do it, China does it, right? How many people have used that argument? And I think that what Anthropic is suggesting is possible, but will need time to accumulate support and also develop the metrics of how we're going to verify that an AI lab isn't trying to train a model. Because as they mentioned a little bit later on in their article, training AI models is easier to conceal than missile silos, for example. that is the end for today's XYZ Weekly Review. If you like it, subscribe, and I will see you next week.